Sometimes this is the only moment defense lawyer Taylor Sterrett can speak to her client when court is in session.
I'm often going into court appearances with clients who are often appearing by video from HMP, and they're not aware of what's going to be happening with their matter that morning, and I'm not aware necessarily of their instructions about what they want to do that morning because I have no way to reach them.
No way to reach them because that requires staff to get them on the phone, and without enough staff, inmates can't move around the building.
Having to lock the inmates in their cells more, especially on the weekends. Typically they get locked in for 2 days at a time, and if the inmates are locked in, then they need a staff escort to be able to use the phone. Then they also need a staff escort to do visits. So most inmates haven't had, I think there's been no visits for the last 6 weeks. Most inmates have only had about 3 visits with their family since May.
And when it's not the isolation, it's the rats.
So they have to sleep in cells where they'll often wake up and find rats on them.
HMP right now, it's the worst it's ever been. It's always been bad, and there's always a smell when you go into HMP. And it's really dead rats in the walls. But what's actually going on with the rodents, there's a complete infestation. It was originally just in the SHU, the special handling unit on the bottom, but now it's spread throughout the prison. There's rodents on all units. We've had several, I've had at least 2 clients that have been bitten by mice, which is, this day and age completely unacceptable.
These Service NL reports from HMP's kitchen from March and November back that up. Evidence of rodent activity. Ensure that investigation and remediation continues. And Orr says if it's not the rats, it's the heat or a lack of fresh air and programming. All of that is being noted by judges in the province who are giving 2 days credit for every one served here.
Because the conditions at HMP are so bad that judges are giving enhanced credit just due to the heat in general in the building. The heat down there is unbearable, there's no ventilation, and because of, we've seen enhanced credit for mice bites, for lack of recreation, but also it's affecting medical care, their ability to take people to the hospital.
Lawyer Sandra Fry says she's had clients who've waited far too long for medical attention for issues that should require emergency treatment, and it's time for the public to know.
In Canada, we assume that our correctional facilities and our prisons, we assume that they're, we're punishing people by taking away their freedom, but we're assuming that when they're in there, they're not also having all these human rights violations, they're not going to bed with getting bitten with rodents.
And inside the walls of HMP, inmate Richard Driscoll says inmates and guards share the same misery and message. He fears for the worst.
I don't think it can be sustained at all. I'm really surprised that there hasn't been major incidents. There's been increases in code yellows, which is like violent outbreaks, stuff like that. I fear that basically there would be inmates, responding as captured animals would.